Anyone else feel like they lost half a day of productivity waiting for National to do what they keep doing and keeping the status quo, and then expecting things to somehow magically change and everyone believe that they're the ones to usher in a positive future? And all for what? Another really bad, no good day for Christopher Luxon. I mean, it started with rumours and the press reporting what had been leaked to them, and then media pouncing on every MP as they pulled up to Parliament, from James Meagher, who talked about the All Blacks, to Dan Bidwar, from what One News described as North Octy. And as someone who lives in North Cote, I'd actually be really happy for him to run in North Octy instead. It means I'm not going to end up with crap like this in my letterbox where they are once again claiming a missing $18 billion. You might learn more about that claim on what one media outlet described as an AI hallucinating piece of trash website. Oh, now, how much did all of this rinse and repeat shit show end up costing us? Well, I mean, to be fair, we can't actually know the exact price right now for sure, but if we were to guesstimate $300 to $600 for same-day short-notice Air New Zealand bookings, taxi and transport costs, and hotel or standard accommodation allowances, you're looking at an average of about $1,000 for each MP. So we're looking probably somewhere between 38 and 45 grand for the whole caucus to be sent to Wellington for what should probably be a prime example of this could have been a Zoom meeting. But their rules for their caucus do say that leadership votes need to be anonymous, so the plan was clearly to spend enough money to fully fund 500 students with a free school lunch every day for an entire 10-week school term to decide to keep things exactly as they are now. But sadder within their own party, because now Christopher Luxon knows he's a dead man walking. He has 3 times this year had to put his boot down and say, "Stop doing this," to MPs. Twice now, it's gone to an actual vote. So clearly there isn't the resounding support for the walking gaff maker that he would like us to believe, or he's just really susceptible to rumours, and that's not really a great quality either for our Prime Minister. If he manages to edge out a win in November, the weak leadership will most likely lead to flip-flop Nat voters looking even further right to David or Winston and his "Make New Zealand Great Again" rhetoric, and many National Party traditionalists actually don't like that jerk right that these parties have taken National on this term. Or some of the voters are going to move towards a party like Opportunity, whose evidence-based approach to policy, which hasn't really delivered a lot of policy yet, seems a far cry from the way that the coalition is currently doing things, but with some stable leadership in place. So a much weaker National Party after the election. And look how much they had to concede already under a strong National Party. A weak one may as well just be ACT and New Zealand First Department for wanting to look kind of moderate occasionally. And a loss will see him relegated to the backbenches before he most likely decides to leave and forces a by-election, costing us even more because it's so hard to get to Kmart without free helicopter rides. And would that this was all the woe for our National Party to know, but One News also released a variant poll on Wednesday night. Earlier than I expected, to be honest. I was thinking it was going to be later in the month, but during the caucus meeting itself, One News actually released the preferred PM results from that survey, and Luxon's numbers weren't great, but neither was Chippy's. And this is actually a really great example of both siding a story. All anyone was focused on was the national leadership, but releasing Chippy's support levels, well, that not only detracts from the national story, but creates an imbalance in the way that media present the national story. Yes, Chippy being low isn't great, and letting him off leash and seeing him start to bare his teeth is really needed right now to draw from the confusing shit show National put on. And here, let me show you just how bad it is to confuse messages by reminding you that on Sunday's Coffee and Context on my YouTube and Facebook pages live, I'm going to be talking about the risks of both siding media if you want to come along and learn a little bit more. Oh, and then, just in time to get all over the 6 p.m. news, Chris Pink loses his ministerial portfolios for trying to hold a coup and is punished for inciting everything. Now, as Defence Minister, I really wanted to see a headline that tried to call this a military coup somewhere, but I haven't yet. But I guess this was way worse than, the racism Winston had, so that's why Pink lost his job and Winston remains our Foreign Affairs Minister. Anyway, the Varian poll, which may actually be the fastest a Varian poll has been rendered kind of out of date, also showed not a great outcome. Because it showed for either bloc to get into power, they're going to need the wild and unpredictable centrists of Opportunity, a party that Christopher Luxon ruled out, working with last week in an effort to stop their growth that worked about as well as his claims that he's the best choice to lead a stable government after his third leadership ramblings and second leadership vote in 6 months. On Sunday, Simeon went on to Q&A before he was fact-checked about the number of full-time equivalent nurses hired by the coalition.
The total number of full-time equivalent nurses in New Zealand has increased by 54.
He claimed that Luxon was an asset for National, and as we saw on Wednesday, just a few days later, clearly National MPs are in total, unequivocal agreement with him as usual. Now, can we get back to reminding people that this coalition also appeals to neo-Nazis, which one party gave a microphone to at their conference last month? It's driven our people away, it's driven up unemployment, inflation, business liquidations, it's belittled hard-working Kiwis and people with disabilities, it's shat on core public services that we expect to work for us, it's used Te Tiriti as a napkin during one of Shane Jones's seafood dinners lovingly provided by his friends in the mining and commercial fishing industries, ignored our most vulnerable, and then tried to punish them for being vulnerable, told our young people they're worthless and unimportant, and embarrassed us on the world stage, because in less than 3 months we have to vote, and for some reason 440,000 Kiwis still aren't registered to do that. And sure, some of them won't be allowed to vote because this lot changed the rules to suit themselves, and people should be getting angry and getting out there to have their say about this and show the politicians what they think. But we want as many people ready to vote as possible because, well, as today showed, anything can happen between now and the election. Hello there, Kia ora podcast listeners. I got changed since I recorded this. I actually recorded this just after going to the gym for the first time in a very, very long time, and I can feel it. And I can feel it now while I'm recording this as my body's like, you're getting late, you're getting tired, you're getting old, Paul, old. But that is not the point. That's not what today is about. Today is about what the fuck happened in Wellington. The fact that, $38,000 to $45,000 of our taxpayer money was spent for this whole mess is ridiculous. I want to know whether or not Chris Pink and Chris Luxon were on the same flight to Auckland, because that would have been super awkward if that was the case. Because I know that there's flights happening all the time, but not the same flight happening all the time. So yeah, there's lots of questions around that. And this was all recorded before Chris Pink actually did his I'm quitting thing, which was, interesting. Like it for people who watch politics, it's been a really fascinating day. But I do want to point out that there was a couple of things that came out today that are more important than what we saw today. It doesn't matter what way the vote went in the National Caucus or anything like that. When there was data that came out from Seek showing that job ads are dropping again, that the number of people actually advertising for jobs is going down, and that's really a bad sign for the economy. When there is more jobs, that makes it easier to hire people. Less jobs mean that there is less chance of hiring people, but high unemployment and less jobs mean that you get wage stagnation, because you don't have to offer the best pay to get people into work, and so it's a shit sign for the economy. That hit today. There was a story on Radio New Zealand, you might have picked up, my mate Blake was in there, and they were talking about the total mobility funding, how that's going to be cut. Blake has a petition going at the moment that I think it's at Action Stations to try and get the original subsidy reinstated, which, like, when you've got somebody like Blake who is reliant on a wheelchair for moving at the best of times, having transport access options to go anywhere is essential. And so suddenly losing some of that subsidy, increasing the cost when Blake's ability to earn is really limited, like, that kind of thing sucks. It really does suck. And that's something that this government is also doing. There's a whole bunch of headlines that keep hitting about how terrible the government actually is. And then you get a poll like the one we saw tonight where it's like 30 for Labour, 29 for National. It's like, how? How is that possible? And the only thing I can sort of bring it down to is people are tired. People are exhausted of just, it feels like wild centrism, which might be why Opportunity is doing so well. But yeah, it is always the most frustrating thing for me being somebody who watches politics and not being somebody who influences politics, because there's so much I would change if I had the chance, and this is why I can never run for an elected office, because I would be a tyrant if I had that much power, and I know it, and so I'm not going to do that. And I know that if somebody ever talks me into running for an elected office, that this is a clip that is going to come back and bite me in the ass. Like Chris Pink standing up saying, you know what, I think I could be the new Chris that runs national. That would also be something that bites someone in the ass. To be fair though, we don't actually know what happened today. We weren't in the room where it happened, and I'm not going to be singing a Hamilton-inspired song about that because copyright reasons. So yeah, I'm going to go and sleep, or maybe shower and then sleep. Maybe sleep in the shower. Honestly, I knew I was out of shape because it's been a very long time since I've worked out, and it's obviously a very sedimentary thing sitting here talking to a camera all the time. So definitely a good thing to go to the gym. Oh my God, I'm so exhausted. And then I've got so much to do for the rest of the week. Like Thursday is BHN, where we're going to look at some open brief data around what happened this week, and you know what that's going to be about. And then Friday night there's the BHN meetup in Ponsonby, and then Saturday there's the BHN Tatidity debate, which is really interesting. I found out today one of my jobs is going to be to usher the MPs into like waiting areas and stuff like that. I get to tell David Seymour where to go, which sounds fun. In an official capacity, that's probably going to be quite boring, but at least I can put it on my CV. I'm the person who told David Seymour where to go. Yeah, but we'll deal with that on Saturday. And then Sunday, there's 2 live streams, Coffee and Context and The Collective. Yeah, I definitely need to get some sleep. So yeah, you survived another Chris Luxon almost got rolled day. The fact that you've survived this twice is kind of depressing. But, well, not my party, not my circus, not my monkeys. We're just the ones who suffer for all of the decisions that they've made. All right, look, until tomorrow, look after yourselves. Ka kite anō. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. Or share the podcast or video or whatever format it is that you're watching this on or listening to this on. And I will catch you guys all later.